right, time for a little conscientious objectors. Jason Whitlock, Steve Kim. I'm the GOAT. He's the Korean Cosell. Steve, I know we got plans, but I got to start with a curveball. I know you watched the new Undisputed this morning, and I didn't get a chance to watch much of it. I have seen a lot of the social media clips, and so I just kind of want to start there with your initial thoughts. Michael Irvin, Richard Sherman, Keyshawn Johnson, all with Skip Bayless. It took 3 guys to replace Shannon Sharpe, I guess. Your thoughts on the debut of the new Undisputed?
Okay, so I watched the bulk of the show. I've DVR'd it. I'm going to watch the rest later tonight. First of all, with that cast, and I guess Josina Anderson is going to be part of that ensemble, and with the theme song made by Lil Wayne, it's official, Jason. Skip has the perma invite to the cookout. He's good. He's got the pass. But I'm going to tell you something. It is great to have the showmaker from the U back. It's like having a 6-pack of Jolt Cola. Just walking in, waking up to a fresh morning, and you get Michael Irvin. And Michael Irvin had a lot to say. Look, the chemistry was pretty good. It was not overly combative. And I'm glad they have some guys that aren't just going to be pro-Cowboys all the time. However, I do have a concern, and I don't know how they're going to change the format, who's going to be in and out. Obviously, you know what it's like to consistently evolve a show. I don't know if the 4-man roundtable is going to work all the time, because one thing I did notice, Skip Bayless is kind of like the GM of this team, and he thinks he's the team captain, and he thinks it's Michael Jordan. Too many times he was left out in the corner without the ball. I don't know how long that's going to play, because there was a couple of times you could tell he wanted to say, hey, guys, I'm open. Feed me the ball. And so I think they're going to have to streamline that a little bit. But in my view, and again, I'm very biased. I make no bones about it. Michael Irvin should be the centerpiece out of the supporting cast, if you will. And Keyshawn and Richard Sherman will play a role. It sounded and looked good today, but let's see where we are in about 2 months.
I don't expect them to have that 4-man desk very often with those 4 guys. I think Richard Sherman's supposed to do 50 to 100 shows. I think Keyshawn will probably be there most often. Maybe the playmakers there, 50, 100 shows. I'm not sure. I did not know that Josina Anderson has been added to that cast. Wow. They got their hands full.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. Jason, don't even call it the cookout. The cookout hosted by Skip Bayless.
That name's already taken by me, but it is... interesting to see. If you look at that show, why not just call it Fearless, hosted by the old white guy? I mean,
wow. You know, but look, I am glad Michael Irvin's back, because he's so unfiltered, and he makes for fun TV. We have all the guys that could do the analytics, the guys that could do the analysis, they could recite stats, they could say what's politically correct. Michael Irvin will try his best not to do that. And I find him incredibly entertaining. He can be self-deprecating. And he had this great sequence where he talked about how receivers should actually catch the ball with their body. And I've seen him teach this before. And him and Sherman got into it saying, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to catch with your hands? And no, Michael Irvin says when you're around people and you're running into contact, like when you're running the Bang 8, which was his route, you can't catch the ball with your hands. They're going to rake the basket. You have to have armor and protect that ball. And Michael did not like Richard Sherman questioning him on it, but it was funny the way he did it. And this is what is lost in a lot of these debate shows. Agreeing to disagree, but being funny about it. See, I don't think that happens enough. Too many guys are combative. They let their egos get involved. Michael can vehemently disagree with you, and he'll make it about himself, but he will be funny about it, which to me is very, very important.
Yeah. Did you check out Lil Wayne's new song for the new Undisputed? Did you check? I mean, when you call it the cookout, they even got a new rap theme song, and Lil Wayne shirtless and all tatted up again. I mean, the level of pandering on this show is mind-boggling, and I guess it speaks to there's a strategy as it relates to Skip that goes back to the ESPN days with First Take and still is in play. Is like there's a demographic of men who are at home that have the free time to watch this, and many of them are out on parole, I guess.
Oh boy,
I did go there, and I'm just that's that whole concept. That's what it looks like. It's pandering to, and maybe that's what you have to do in the morning, because I don't know who has the free time to watch 2.5 hours of Skip Bayless.
Jason, I'll make a prediction. By the end of the year, codeine will be one of the official sponsors of this show, or scissor. Okay, that'll be the official beverage of Undisputed.
Swisher Sweets, Swisher Sweets.
But I had completely forgotten, because I've never actually watched Undisputed from the beginning. I've seen clips, but it's not like I've ever set my DVR for 6:30 in the morning. But today, because of the showmaker, I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. Got to support my guy. And it's right. And I'm listening to the lyrics. I'm like, wow, they must have done a new song. So look, I believe that Skip is being very calculating here. Let's take a look at the end of his tenure or run, that union with Shannon Sharpe. There was an anti-Skip sentiment, like you said, from a certain demographic in America, especially after the comments about Damar Hamlin. Then the Tom Brady dispute that went off the rails with Shannon. And there was a particular sect that just hated Skip. And it became a little bit racial or cultural, right? Older white guy talking disrespectfully to a black man. So Skip is thinking, okay, how do I get certain people back on my side? And how do I get back to the barbecue? Okay, so he looks at his Rolodex and he goes, okay, Lil Wayne, Showmaker, Sherman, Key, just get me the damn show. So there you go. There you have it. And you got to get the demographic. Joe Cena, Miss Anderson has to be involved.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who got left out. If he was really, really, really going all in, I don't know if he left a stone unturned. I mean,
well, don't worry. This is just day one. This is just day one. I'm beginning.
I'm trying to think. Well, you know what?
Oh no, I don't think if I want to hear this. Oh boy,
he's got to have Louis Farrakhan on if he really wants to cement the whole deal.
Yeah, they could call that segment Salam Alaikum. And also, if you want to go sports and entertainment, I'm going to show my age. You want to go sports and entertainment, have musical guests open? You know what? Get Donnie Simpson. Bring Donnie Simpson in for a weekly music segment. Let's just go all the way back. So he does that. He's good. He's good in the hood, Skip Bayless.
All right. Well, anyway, maybe he'll get, Suge Knight Skyping in from Alcatraz or wherever he's at. Chino. I think he's in Chino. Anyway, let me move on. I can't believe we spent this much time on that. I wasn't planning on it. Let's go to the news in the NFL, the big news in the NFL. There's a couple of big ones, but this is probably the biggest. Trey Lance, the 49ers first-round pick. They gave up 3 first-round picks to get him a couple of years ago. He was supposed to replace Jimmy Garoppolo. This is not a great look for Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch. They move him to the Dallas Cowboys. People in San Francisco and 49ers fans are like, man, did we screw up? People in Dallas are cheering like, hey, we may have a replacement for Dak Prescott. There does seem to be some excitement for Trey Lance. I don't get it. I don't get it. But what is the story here? The bust, the draft bust that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan participated in, or the fact that Jerry Jones traded for Trey Lance and he may be an option if Dak Prescott continues to lead the league in interceptions?
I believe it's the first one, Jason. This here If you look at what the Miami Dolphins turned into that trade, okay, this is the modern day version of Herschel Walker to the Vikings. It really is. And I still remember that year. Unfortunately for Trey Lance, when COVID 2020 struck, his season was expunged, and I think they played a showcase game in like March or April, and then his season was gone. And look, there is some physical ability there. Scouts did like him, but he has not played a lot of football. He does not hit a lot of those benchmarks that coaches like Bill Parcells said. To be drafted in the first round as a quarterback, he always wanted certain things like a certain number of starts. Did you make the honor roll? Did you play enough games? Were you a team captain? Trey Lance simply did not have a lot of experience. And even in that showcase game, which again, it's not a great indicator because that game was kind of thrown together, you could see that he needed a lot of spit and polish. I did not understand why the Niners, who generally do a very good job in player personnel, would give up that much. Here's what I think the story is. That everyone in the Niner organization, I see Shanahan saying, oh, we failed Trey Lance. Timeout. If the guy couldn't play, he couldn't play. He failed himself then, and you screwed up by putting all of your eggs into that basket. I wonder if that was a white quarterback, would they be saying this? Let's just be out there. This is what we do. We're fearless. I almost believe that they are looking for sympathy because I don't remember the last time Ryan Leaf. No one failed Ryan Leaf except Ryan Leaf. He couldn't play. Now, Trey Lance can change my mind because he's still very young, but the reason why the Niners are moving on from him is very simple. They like Brock Purdy more. This has nothing to do with failing him. The Niners failed themselves by moving up in the draft and giving up that much to get a highly unproven quarterback. That's the story.
Yeah, sometimes when you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you end up outsmarting yourself. And they thought they saw something in Trey Lance that no one else did, and we're going to go up and get him. But you're right in terms of, I don't remember anybody shedding any crocodile tears in the Arizona Cardinals. Man, we failed Josh Rosen.
Right.
Most people was like, nah, Josh Rosen crashed and burned. He was arrogant and cocky, and he wasn't as good as he thought he was, and he failed. Why can't the same thing be true with Trey Lance? Hey, Steve, I want to play you a clip. I want to just talk a little bit about the other side of this, the Dak Prescott thing. I think we have a clip of Jerry Jones making some comments about Trey Lance.
Okay. Jerry, can you go ahead and talk about what the acquisition of Trey Lance means for this team this season, but then also going forward after this year?
Well, he gives us an opportunity to do what we would always like to be doing. It would be ideal with Dak to have a young, prospective, developing quarterback that could just be in the room, I'm going to use the term, but be on the team with him, because this gives him not only an opportunity to take, I'm talking Trace, not only Trey, what he got in San Francisco, but he can take, in my mind, one of the finest quarterback rooms there is, because Dak Prescott's in it.
Huh.
So that to me sounds like Jerry is choosing his words very carefully, and he doesn't want to upset Dak, but he's clear. You don't make this move and you don't say the things he's saying unless he feels like Trey Lance gives us an opportunity to move on from Dak if this guy continues to throw interceptions.
Can we be honest about this? And again, this story may be just beginning for Trey Lance. But as of right now, and I'm going to show my age again, he's actually done less in his career than Glenn Hogeboom and Glenn Carano. In fact, he's done less than Clint Longley. Okay, I don't get this. The guy's
Gary Hogeboom, but go ahead. Gary Hogeboom.
I'm just like,
threw me
come
off
on.
for a second.
What in the name of Danny White is going on here? There's never been so much hoopla for a guy. He's not going to be the backup. That's still Cooper Rush. He's the third quarterback. This really speaks to the brand of the Dallas Cowboys, and unfortunately how big of a bust, for lack of a better term, Trey Lance is. He's going to a team that is telling you he's the third quarterback. And if I'm Dak Prescott, and I can see why he's a little bit agitated by this, because as the quarterback, you don't ever want the owner or anyone else to say, well, we might have a guy that might be our future. You don't do that to franchise quarterbacks. Now, you could make the argument maybe Dak Prescott isn't elite, so he doesn't get afforded that treatment. I won't argue that. But in the deepest recesses of Dak Prescott's mind, here's what I'm thinking. Oh, so you think this guy's the future? Good. If that's the guy, good. Because I'm going to be here for another decade then. I would actually be surprised if Trey Lance could ever even get to the Dak Prescott level of play.
Harsh words from a harsh man, Steve Kim. Let's move on to a topic I brought up last week, and people were like, oh, you're making too much of it, Whitlock. No, I'm not. Another NFL game, preseason, was called off because somebody got hurt and had to be carted off the field. This time, David Davis, I believe, a receiver for the Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins, says it would have been inappropriate to continue the game. They were playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe there were 8 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter when they called this game. Steve, I don't. These are just paper cuts, man, that eventually are going to lead to the death of it. It started with the Pro Bowl. Hey, we don't want to hit. And the next thing you know, they had to cancel the Pro Bowl. Now preseason games are getting canceled because, someone's getting carted off. It's a new precedent. We're what are we, 10 days away from the start of the NFL season? What happens on Thursday night if someone gets carted off Thursday, September 7th, someone gets carted off the field? Is there a discussion about calling the game off?
Yeah, I wonder, look, is that the new unwritten rule that if it's a preseason game in the fourth quarter and someone is prone on the field, is now there just a gentleman's agreement, hey, come on, optics. Oh, and we care about the players, let's go. Okay, you know what? I will take that concession. I know it drives you nuts. It just kind of mildly agitates me.
You don't think it's going to... We're going to have this conversation in the regular season, Steve.
Well, let's see what happens. Well, all right, so let's fast forward 3.5, 4 months. 2 9-7 teams are playing in week 17. Tie game in the middle of the third. A terrible, violent collision happens and both guys are knocked out. But the third or the final wild card spot is on the line. The game is 17-17. I wonder, how are they going to handle it then? Is it all about the health of the players? Or do we have a business to run?
No, you've given the wrong hypothetical. You're at the right part of the season. What happens when it's 4-12 season, 4-12 teams playing in the final week of the season, and someone gets hurt in the third quarter? And let's say someone's winning by 24 points, and so no chance of them coming back. That's where decisions are going to get made, and fans are going to be put on the back burner, and it won't matter how much you paid. But I think we're talking about end of the season hypotheticals, but I think week 1 we're going to be faced with this, where there'll be a discussion. It won't stop. The game will continue. The solution to me, and maybe I'm a weirdo, and people will not like this suggestion, but for me, for years, TV has focused way too much on showing replays of injuries. There's a gentleman's agreement now across the league in all these sports that if a streaker comes onto the field, the TV networks just don't show it. And I would like to, when someone gets hurt, show the replay once, go to commercial break, and stay in commercial break, or come back to the booth, have a conversation, then go back to commercial until the player's off the field. Quit all the intense television camera focus on these injuries is why everybody is now like, oh my God, we can't play, it's inappropriate, oh, I'm squeamish. If the TV cameras would quit showing replay injuries over and over and over and over again, and we took a little of the focus off injuries, this wouldn't be an issue.
I think that's part of it. What you said reminds me, when I was growing up in Valencia, California, one of the most famous or infamous injuries of all time, Joe Theismann on Lawrence Taylor. Never forget, it was a Monday night game at RFK Stadium. It was a flea flicker, and Joe Theismann, literally, that was the last play of his career, as he was kind of blindsided, awkward fall, and his leg or his ankle just snapped in half. And I remember how many times ABC Sports just showed that over and over again. It reminded me of that old Saturday Night Live skit where Buckwheat got shot, and they just kept showing Buckwheat getting drilled like JFK. Here's the issue, though. I actually agree with that the graphic images, they don't need to be shown over and over again, because that does get gratuitous. When I hear of a gruesome injury, I'm the type of guy now, I'm not in a rush to go onto Twitter to find it. And I remember when there was a Louisville basketball player, I think his name was Kevin Ware, had this horrific leg injury. To this day, I've never seen it. Never wanted to see it, have no real idea of what it even looked like. Don't ever want to see it. But even then, because of the optics of paramedics being brought onto the field, they take out the stretcher, and even if the guy is moving his limbs and he gives a thumbs up and say, hey guys, I'm really fine. First of all, and again, this is not a bad thing, they're overly cautious. They don't want any spinal injuries. But the guy could be telling everybody, hey, I'm good here. Don't have to, but problem is, you got to give that perception that safety is first, second, and third. And so once that happens, now all of the media members are conditioned to talk about the violence of football. Does it have a place in our society? And none of these guys are honest enough or have the guts enough to say, hey guys, they chose to play the game. They're compensated for it. They know what they're getting into. I'm being dead. I think if a columnist actually tried to say that, the editor or the deputy editor would say, no, we can't go with that. So that's how dishonest this whole process is. But I do believe, Jason, you are right. The National Football League is going down a slippery slope here, is that when an injury that looks a little bit more serious than your garden variety torn ACL, they're putting themselves or backing themselves into a corner.
The other point you make that I think is excellent is that because of how safety conscious we've become, they're now far more prone to take someone off in a cart, to put someone in a head and neck restraint, just to cover their rear end so that they don't get sued. And so, again, the first instance of this in the preseason, I can't think of the guy's name, but he was out of the hospital the next day, the next morning or whatever. And I don't know the status of David Davis here, but I'm thinking last year, the Tua alleged head injury or whatever it was, I'm telling you, I could see a game getting stopped over concussions. Not just is the guy paralyzed, over concussions. If it looks bad enough, if the optics look bad enough on TV, they've trained everybody. This is going to be a nightmare for the NFL, and it's going to. I have a very negative view. Steve, I'm gonna give you another example. I know you're not a gambler, but college football kicked off on Saturday, and Ohio U was playing San Diego State. And here we're in this over safety conscious environment. Ohio U's quarterback, I think his name's Curtis Rourke, was the best player on the field, 6'5". He's a pro prospect, best player on the field. He gave Ohio a chance to go out to San Diego and get a victory. Takes a routine hit in the second quarter, stays down for 5-7 seconds, jogs off the field, goes into the medical tent, he's never seen again. After the game, Ohio's coach says he'll be perfectly fine. He was begging to come back in the game, but we left him out. And I'm sitting there watching this game, and I'm like, as a gambler, if I had bet money on Ohio U, let's hypothetically say that I had bet money on Ohio U, and the quarterback takes a routine hit, wants to come back in the game, never comes back in the game, out of all this safety concern that I'm telling you, in 1988, in my era, that guy may have missed a snap at most. He missed the rest of the game. I just don't know, as a gambler, I don't know as a fan, how you trust what you see, what you're betting on, and what's the real motive and agenda here. The game just seems sketchy to me.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to Michael Irvin. The last play he ever was a part of was a slant in Philadelphia on that hard turf at the Vet. And I remember the game stopped, and it looked like, wow, this guy might be paralyzed. And both teams were on their knees, and Philadelphia, being the fans that they are, they cheered like hell, which, staying on brand. But there was never a thought that this game was going to end. I mean, seriously, as soon as that paramedic or that ambulance got off the field, both teams lined up and played football. There was never even a discussion of, we may have just had a paralyzed player. How can we dare play the game of football, which is so trivial? No, back then it was, okay, guys, that's the game we're in. Let's go line up and play ball. Let's do it for our fallen teammate. There is no doubt about it. There is an erosion that is taking place. If there's ever going to be a tipping point where the public says, okay, this is not football, this is not what I want to support, I'm not sure about that, because of the gambling aspect and also fantasy football, fantasy sports. I mean, football is the most powerful sport we have in America. Now, maybe in 50 years, it'll be football, what they call soccer. Thankfully, I probably won't be alive to have to put up with that, so I'm kind of lucky in that regard. But as of right now, I just don't see enough people being turned off to a point where they'll walk away from participating in the viewership of the game.
Steve, finally, Stephen A. Smith and Dan Le Batard, they're bickering again.
Oh, boy.
They're bickering again. Stephen A. Smith going after Dan Le Batard after, I guess, Le Batard played the race angle on this whole debate show thing and who dumbed down what. Anyway, here's Stephen A. Smith talking about Dan Le Batard.
I would like to talk to him in the future in a way that is conversational instead of performative about how dumb sports debate television has made everything. See, this is the thing. Stephen A. respects Skip Bayless, who's a plague, because Skip Bayless gave Stephen A. the chance that he gave Shannon Sharpe to do the thing of, let's do white man, black man, and we'll do the dog whistle, and sports will get dumber, and I will spend 20 years chasing LeBron, who's only the athlete of our times, who deserves all sorts of praise. I'm going to situate myself as the hater and just get somebody loud and black across from me, and we will fight.
I don't mean to bring up old news, but I just saw that from Dan Le Batard from July 17th, what he said. Talking about having a conversation with me, and he would hope that it would not be performative. You know good, excuse me, respectfully, Dan Le Batard, you know good and well, this is how I talk. Sometimes lower, sometimes higher, but I always talk like this. It ain't performative, it's me. It's insulting for you to imply that. And I'm sick and tired of being hit in the back with implications from somebody that's supposed to know me. But that's a story for another day. This is how I talk. You've known me for over 20 years. The people in the industry who have seen me, who have known me, who have been around me in press boxes or whatever, a lot of people I don't talk to at all. But when I do talk, I always talk the same. Sometimes the volume is higher or lower. But I speak the way that I speak. What do you mean performative? Like I'm trying to put on a show. I've talked to you on the phone when nobody's around or nobody's listening or nobody's watching. The exact same way. And you know it.
This is getting spicy. It's finally, to me, it looks like it's finally getting to a real place. And I say that in all seriousness. These guys, oh, we're friends, we're this, we're that. Just because you talk to each other doesn't make you friends. And so just occasionally talk to each other doesn't make you friends. And so and what I will agree with on Stephen A. Smith is the way he is on TV, that's how he is in real life. It's his whole life is a performance if you want to go that road, but he's that same guy everywhere.
Whitlock, the trio once said, Houdini, friends, how many of us have them? They're no longer friends. They're not even frenemies. And I told you this, there's a growing tension I thought was very visible, and it's my theory, is that once Stephen A. Smith ventured out on his own platform, and started to amplify his own views, which are more conservative, right-leaning, than hyper-liberal, which goes against Le Batard, I think that started it. This is the point that I want to make. I'm completely on Stephen A. Smith's side, because that's insulting. But this is the problem, and I've said this about people like Le Batard, who espouse to be so liberal and non-racist and woke. They look down on the very same minorities that they tell you that they love and want to help. They actually look down on them. They don't believe that these people can be intelligent or be authentically themselves. Again, the standards you set for somebody or the expectations you have, that's what you think of them. And this is the fact about most people like Dan Le Batard. They actually think less of other minorities and certain people of color. That right there was another example of it. That Stephen A. Smith just can't be himself and be who he is and just, or any black pundit. I actually don't see that many black pundits, whether it's Shannon Sharpe, always seems like, I get the sense that's who he is. Keyshawn Johnson, I get the sense that's who he is. Jason Williams, Michael Irvin. This whole notion that black announcers or journalists are trotted out there to Sambo it. Again, Dan, what do you really think about them then? Honestly, I think I actually am completely with Stephen A. Smith.
I get why you're with Stephen A. Smith, and I'm right there with you. I think maybe you've put a few words in Dan's mouth about, get out there and Sambo it up. I don't know. I think he's saying both Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless are doing a performance.
Aren't we all?
Aren't
we all? I just find it highly ironic that Dan Le Batard thinks that I'm above it. What are you talking about? What about the cast of lineup you have? What about that woke rainbow that you shove down everyone's throat? See, this is the thing. I know for a fact I have people that probably don't like what I say. And to that I say, good. Okay, that's fine. Just like, it, Jason, there's people that don't like you or they don't like you and I together. And there's probably people that don't like various shows. But Dan, I hate to tell you this. This is a fact of life. There's a lot of people that actually think your show is garbage too. And guess what? They're allowed to have that opinion, whether it's positive or negative. But to think that somehow Dan Le Batard has not been part of the quote unquote problem that he speaks of is just intellectually dishonest.
Here's what I'll say. Here's where I'll agree with you and agree with Stephen A. Smith, and where Stephen A. did not go because maybe he's not trying to go there. Stephen A. is more authentic than Dan Le Batard, and that's why Stephen A. is offended. And Dan Le Batard is the one actually doing a performance. That's part of the argument you're making. And Dan Le Batard, again, I've been through what Stephen A. is going through. It was a bit more cleverly unpacked, but for Dan to have allowed Stugotz and then some of those young clowns on his show to say anything about me on his show speaks to his lack of character, his lack of loyalty, his lack, and again, I'm letting you say what you think about something that's in the news cycle. I'm talking about back when me and Dan were friends, or at least I thought we were friends. some of the BS that Stu got pulled, talking about me way outside the lines, and for Dan to sit there and giggle and laugh it off way outside the lines. And then his little minions try to do the same thing they did to Michelle Tafoya. And this is where the authenticity. Stephen A. Smith would never allow 2 or 3 little clowns, what's the guy's name, Mike Ruiz, and the little black dude that jumped on Michelle Tafoya, and Dan just sat back and played the back and just let these guys try to clown this woman. That's the kind of inauthentic, everything Dan supposedly represents, and sitting on camera with Katie Nolan and some of these other people that he knows don't know a damn thing about sports and don't deserve to be on a show debating him and other people that actually have paid some dividends. He's phony, and that's what has Stephen A. Smith upset.
Jason, here's the reality. If you and Stephen A. Smith had the same views or were able to be puppeted by him into the same talking points that Dominic Foxworth and Bromani Jones, yeah, I said Bromani, did, he'd love you. But once you started to go on the opposite side ideologically in any way, that's when the liberal God complex of his kicked in. That's just my view. You can disagree. You want my opinion? That's why I'm here. I just gave it to you. And I see that a lot.
Gotcha. Only thing I would say a little bit there, I don't think Dan's an actual liberal. I think Dan just does whatever the money tells him to do.
Right.
Again, he does whatever the money tells him to do while pretending that he doesn't care about the money. That you talk to anybody, oh, Dan's just here for his friends and for this and for that, and he doesn't care about. No, he cares about the money, and that's why he's adopted all these liberal points of view, progressive point of view, because it's always about the money with Dan.
It is, and so look, Stephen A. Smith, I can't say I watch him every day, but I respect his work. I do, and I've told you this before. Years ago, this is about 15 years ago, when he did a show on ESPN2, I think it was called Quite Frankly or something like that, where he did his own variety show. I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie to you, I actually thought the monologues were good. He had a lot of boxing guests on, which I really enjoyed. I remember one time, he did one of the most open and honest interviews with Allen Iverson, which I said, wow, this is what the best of what sports journalism can be. And he hustles, but he's in a tough spot. In his spot as a black man, if you do not go in lockstep with certain talking points or democratic or liberal views, there's gonna be a faction that's just going to try to kill you. They are, not figuratively or not literally, but they will try to just come against you and they'll try to silence you. I give Stephen A. Smith credit because there are times he's actually created his own platform, that podcast, where he can say, okay, I'm out of the ESPN bubble. This is what I really think. And he lets it go. That alone, whether you like him or not, in my view, is at least a small act of courage.
Finally, Steve, I want to be quick here. Did you see this? Spain won the Women's World Cup. And the head of the Spanish Soccer Federation grabbed a woman. Play the video. He grabbed a player, put his hands on her, and kissed her right in the mouth, and is taking a lot of flack for this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the woman thinks. I'm not sure how I feel about this. It does make me giggle. Do you have any thoughts here? And it kind of reminds me of Joe Namath and Susie Colbert. So let's play the Joe Namath, Susie Colbert deal, and then which is worse?
I believe everything that anyone else has watched Chad play impresses me. The same thing impresses them.
What does it mean to you now when the team is struggling?
I want to kiss you. I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
It was awful. We had been gone since 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and I did the wrong thing.
I want to kiss you.
Thanks, Joe. I'll take it as a huge compliment.
you know what?
Joe
This is
Namath,
the
part of the
all-time
four-decade team.
I'm very disappointed with my behavior.
I gotta say, I've been right there with Joe Namath as it relates to Susie Colbert. She was my favorite ESPN anchor for 20 years. Anyway, who's worse here, Joe Namath or the Spanish Soccer Federation head?
I mean, with Joe, you could just kind of blame it on the Henny. He tried to allude to it, you know. And I love Miss Colbert. She was a pro's pro. She had a great run, just a complete professional. She didn't deserve that. I felt bad for her. And what can I tell you? The Spaniards love soccer. It's that hot Latin passion. But to be real about it, every guy across the world now, you know what the era we're in. Just give a firm handshake. Just don't play. Now I heard that guy's mother is on a hunger strike. They're taking this pretty seriously here. But fellas, in fact, you know what? Just give a dap. Just dap it up. Don't take any risks. Move along.
You think he would have done that to Megan Rapinoe?
No, I think they would have given an air 5. Like, okay, air 5. That's the whole thing. Shit. I don't know. I don't.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Thank you. I gotta go. I want you guys watching. Go down, leave some comments. What do you think about any of these topics? The Spanish soccer guy, to Joe Namath, to Dan Le Batard, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, his new show. Leave a comment. We'll see you next time. Don't miss a second of Fearless. Hit that like button and subscribe to keep up with all of our latest content.